Hi, everybody. It's Michelle Jackson. I am here with another amazing author. We have Dr. Jean Francis, and she's here to talk about her book, Naked Truth, A Fight Against Racism, Religious Discrimination, and Retaliation in My Career with the Federal Government. She's going to talk to us about her amazing book, and we're going to talk about workforce discrimination as well as writing and publishing. So if you're out there, we ask that you do a couple of things. One, we want you to find us on YouTube or on Facebook, and you can go to author Michelle D. Jackson to find us on Facebook. Find this post and share it on your page so that we can maximize the number of people who are watching us right now. We also ask you to go to YouTube if you can't go to Facebook, and you can go to BW underscore workforce, and workspace, and you can also find us. You can also, which is what I love, drop your questions in the comment areas so that we can get those questions up on the screen and get some answers for you. But for the next 30 minutes, we're going to be talking to Dr. Francis and learning about her amazing book, Naked Truth. Let's bring on the screen. Hi.
Hi, Michelle. How are you? I am so happy to be here. Real excited to speak with you today.
Me too. I am so excited to have you here to talk about your book. I am so excited to know that there are so many people who have been waiting patiently for the last hour to ask you questions and to get connected with you. I know that you have written a book, a memoir about your life and your experiences dealing with workforce discrimination while working for the federal government. There are so many things that you and I have in common. We are both
Yes.
military wives. I spent 19 years as a military wife. Now my husband is a retired lieutenant colonel. And I know what it feels like to move around and to have to put your life on hold in some ways and then take hold of those career opportunities when you can get them and make the
Yes.
best of them. And so I'm really, really interested for you to talk about your book. We are also two people. I lived in Maryland, and you are living in Maryland now. I've been there, you said, 40 years. So I think this is going to be a wonderful conversation because for two military wives who had very unique careers, climbing the ladder, for me, the state, I work for the state of Maryland, and you, the federal government, it's going to be excellent to talk about how being an African American woman in these work environments, how that impacted you and the things that you had to face and the things that you had to figure out how to maneuver through so that you can maintain your voice. So as we get into your book, Naked Truth, let's first hear from you. Tell us about yourself and tell us about your work.
Sure, Michelle. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Daphne Jean Francis. Everybody calls me Jean, but that's okay too. I am the wife of my high school sweetheart, Lionel Francis. And on July 26th, we celebrated our 42nd wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
And guys, we are still having fun. Because of our union, we've got three exceptional children, two girls and one boy. And we are also blessed with a grandchild, a grandson. And when we get together, Michelle, there's no dull moment for us. So I am so happy to have my family behind me, my husband, my children, and it makes for a good life. I also teach leadership management courses as a professor for American Public University. I enjoy, I just wrote my book, Naked Truth, and that's what we're going to talk about here today. My mission in sharing my story, the Naked Truth, is to empower others to own their voice. I recognize that and also recognize their worth and take action in creating a life of joy, a life of purpose, and a life of success. I am intentional about helping people believe in themselves and the power of their dreams, but most importantly, to own their voice. I am the founder and CEO of Daily Management Company, and it's a contracting company. And I also serve as adjunct professor for American Public University. I enjoy traveling, Michelle. I enjoy cooking and decorating and spending time with my family. But above everything that I have told you today about me, and I know it was in a nutshell, at the end of the day, I want to be known as a warrior for justice and a woman of God.
Excellent, excellent. And once again, something else that we have in common, I am also an adjunct professor for Tulane University.
Wow.
Two military wives who were able to embark on some amazing careers. I started out running malls in the South. Wasn't a lot of African Americans in that field. Wasn't a lot of women in that field as well. I was in my early 20s as a mall manager for shopping malls, and I was in a male-dominated industry, and I dealt with a lot of things. And then I moved from that to eventually working for the state of Maryland for in economic development and writing policy. So let's talk about your book, Naked Truth. I love that title. I know that this title means a lot to you. And the questions that keep rolling in my head is what were you trying to expose? What is this naked truth
Yes.
that you wanted to expose in your book?
Michelle, that is an excellent question. And in my book, Naked Truth, I showed earlier that's just been released, I embarked on that literary voyage, and it did not occur by happenstance, but rather from a place of deep despair, Michelle. And when I say deep despair, it was deep despair and also anger. But I also want to look at that anger as righteous indignation because I know what had done to me and what was said, and it was not true. And so there was an unyielding passion for me to tell my truth. And in so doing, I wanted to empower, I wanted to inspire, and I wanted to uplift the hearts and minds of those who were experiencing or had experienced the same fate. Finally, writing my book provided me with the opportunity to discuss a topic that lies at the very core of our humanity, and that's owning our voice against discrimination and affecting change. Let me add, it's sad, Michelle, it's so sad that, and incredibly sad, that in a world that we should be celebrating our diversity, it is disheartening to witness the stifling of voices due to prejudice and bias. But I am here to remind you, if you are within the sound of my voice, that your voice is a force to be reckoned with. And it is time to rise above the shackles of discrimination and make a lasting impact for the next generation. In my introduction, I mentioned my three exceptional children and my grandchild. This fight is not about me. It's about leaving an environment that will be able to so my children rather would not encounter what I had gone through. And it is time and because well also to make a lasting impact, I wanted to say. Because if you don't, if I don't, who will? But here's the bottom line, Michelle. Each of us possess a unique perspective, a set of experience, which means that my experience might be not be your experience, and your experience might not be my experience, but we all have experiences. But our voices deserve to be heard. We are not just faceless individual. I have a face, you have a face, we all have faces. And we are beacons of light for radiating our truths and convictions. Discrimination attempts to dim that light, to silence the power within us. But today, I urge you to rise above it and claim your voice. Let no one else tell your story the way he or she wants to tell your story. It's your life, it's your story. Be bold and tell it how it should be told.
Now, you worked for some prominent military officers, and you worked for DoD, and you did quite a bit in for the federal government. And you talk about some of the things that you had to deal with, like for the first time when you were um, the person you worked with didn't want you to go to your prenatal appointments, those types of things.
Yes.
You know, as women, we deal with things in the workplace that a lot of times we won't even give voice to because we know a lot of people won't believe us, and b a lot of times we're the lowest person on the totem pole, unfortunately, especially as African American women in these key positions. And if we rattle the cage too loud, we're going to be the first ones put out, discarded. And so talk to us about that first time something happened that you knew was going to be indicative of what your career would be like going forward if you did not give voice to righteous and doing the right thing and fighting against discrimination.
That is a very good question, Michelle. And I wanted to say, just to clear the air, to say that the Department of Defense was one of my fondest memories as a federal employee. It was there I started my career. I'm glad I did. The department, in my view, certainly raised the performance bar in every aspect of the word. I learned much. I developed much. And I was offered much on my quest to become an exceptional employee. However, even in a good organization, you will find bad actors. I call them actors, or you can call them bad apples. But here's the thing, even though you find those bad actors or those apples, as I stated earlier, own your voice. Speak out about sexism. Speak out about discrimination. Too often, we as Black women, or we as women, decide, well, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to let it be. I'm just going to, just don't ruffle the feathers. No, we cannot do that. For every sexism and every racism experience that I have encountered at the DoD, I owned my voice. I spoke out about it.
I love
Yes,
that. I love that.
yes, they did. I was just that kind of person. I was a fighter from day one. My mom taught me how to fight for the right. So did my grandmother. And that fighting spirit was in me. And so when I experienced those actions by my military or civilian leaders, I own my voice because it's my voice. I spoke up against them and I was able to make a change. If I don't speak out, if you don't speak out, it affects the next person that comes behind us. And so, what
Absolutely.
happened if they discriminate against me? That's fine. I'm going to fight because I want the other person behind me to have a better experience in the workplace.
And you know what's so important about this? And I do encourage everyone to drop your questions in the comment area and we'll definitely get to them. But what's important is the fact that we spend a very large amount of our time at work.
Yes.
Okay. Work is important. Work, our workplace, I work from home now, but for years I worked in an office environment. And that culture that is nurtured in those environments are so detrimental because that work environment is connected to your livelihood, your paycheck. Can you put food on the table? Can you take care of yourself? So the work environment is so key, and
Yes.
something that I don't think a lot of us talk a lot about is the trauma that we go through in these toxic work environments. and how it plays a role in how we see ourselves, our confidence, our abilities. Because, like you said, it's not always systematic. It's
Mhm.
sometimes just bad actors. And when
Yes.
you are connected to those bad actors, they can deflate you and make you feel that you're not good enough. So I love that you're talking about your own voice, that you're giving voice to this issue of workforce discrimination. And I'm just happy to know that you're willing to share with us at this point. But tell me something. When did you know you needed to write a book about your experiences, and what did you learn about yourself in writing your book?
So, Michelle, that's a good question. And how did I know that I needed to write a book? First off, I never wanted to write a book. Never ever wanted to write a book. And if you read Naked Truth, you'll see the reason why I wrote the book. What I wanted to do was fight for my justice. I wanted the justice system to hear my story. And so I sat in my chair and started to develop my response because I wanted to hear my story. And as I was sitting in that chair, it's like a voice told me, write your book. I'm like, we're not writing a book today. And that little small voice came like 3 times. And the reason why I submitted to the voice is because I was reminded of a book that I had bought like almost 20 years ago. And I said, oh, yeah, I know that book. And I went looking for the book. And in that book was a list it was my life. It was things that I should accomplish. And I had accomplished all those things. And I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't know I had this memo. And the little voice says, now go write your book. And I dropped everything and I said, you know what? I'm going to write this book. And I said, well, how do I write my book? And it's like the voice says, your book is already written. You see all that date information you have on your floor? Now take it all and go write your book. And in 6 months, Michelle, I used everything that I had, every memo, every you name it, everything I had submitted to the courts, and I wrote that book in the draft, that is, in 6 months. And I think what I want to take away from this is that my experiences in writing my book also helped me to understand my strength because it's not something that I wanted to do. And there's 3 things that I wanted to do with my life, the life that God has given me. And it's the 3 rules that are spoken in Micah 6:8: to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with my God. Michelle, I'm going to tell you this. I don't know about you, but I am sick and tired of racism and discrimination in the workplace and beyond. And like you stated earlier, it is crippling. It really is. And it just changed your whole, your career, your character. It's just everything that's involved. So in my view, I consider racism and discrimination evil acts against humanity. And anything that I can do to bring these despicable acts to light for a more just and equitable society, I will. And that include writing my book.
That's excellent. Tell me, what did you feel about the movement like Me Too? When Me Too happened and you're looking back at your career and the things you had to deal with,
Yeah.
did you feel that the Me Too movement was something that was going to validate you, shine light to some things that you had gone through, did it give you, did it empower you to want to speak up more? Or do you feel like it didn't do any of those things? What were your take on the Me Too movement after writing your book?
Michelle, that's a good question. Another good question. And I I knew when the Me Too movement started. But here's what I want to say: unless we are in a situation where we need to focus on discrimination in a real way, we're not so focused on other people who have been hurt or need a Me Too movement. So, and the reason why I say that is that when I started my career, they were my Black brothers and sisters who were subjected to mail rooms. They were all Black, and that's what they did. And I remember having to go to the mail room, and they were sitting in a group, and they will talk every day about their situation and that their degrees. There are lots of them had degrees. They had master's degrees. Some had two master's degree. Some people had bachelor's degree. But at the same time, they could not move beyond the mail room. I didn't understand. Ouch. Out. Okay. I didn't understand what my brothers and sisters were going through back then because it wasn't happening to me. Until it happened to me in a cubicle where I know that I've done everything that I could. I've learned, I'm educated, but still I was stuck in a cubicle and been told I didn't belong until I get to that point and God brought it back to me. And I thought about my brothers and sisters in the mailroom and how they were hurting because they can't get beyond the color of their skin to get to the next level, is when I understood what it meant to fight for justice. So going back to the Me Too movement, unless you're placed in a situation where you can really empathize with people who have been there, you can't relate. And my daughter said to me, Mom, I thank God put you in that situation because you never really experience the gravity of racism and discrimination in the race. Granted, I had little pockets of discrimination along the way, but nothing to the level that I wrote my book on. So I am so thankful that I get to, it's not an easy thing to go through, but at least I understood now what my brothers in the mailroom and sisters in the mailroom felt like. So then, going back to your question, I understand what the Me Too movement would mean to others who are going through discrimination and retaliation.
Mm-hmm. I've been there. Wish we had time to talk about all the things I've endured or you've endured. It really is troubling, especially as an educated person, go through school, work hard, and then you get into the workforce and you just want to give it your all and you want to excel and be treated fairly and equally with everyone. And you
Yeah.
find out, and I don't know how many people out there have had this experience, but you think you're being treated fairly, and then all of a sudden
Yeah.
you hear about the person who's in a lateral position who's making more money than you because he's male
Yeah.
or because he's not African American or she's not African American. And you begin to question, is this racism? Is this
Yes.
sexism? What is it? What ism is it? Because you know it's something.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so important to you to show up in that space and to work
Yes.
because you need that paycheck until you have to basically toggle and fight with yourself to whether you go for it, whether you fight, whether you stop, whether you start. And I must admit, I have had very similar experiences as you where I have decided I'm not going to take the lesser salary. You
Mm-hmm.
can't get me at this salary anymore. You're going to have to pay me. I'm going to value myself because I learned in the workplace, if you value yourself, it forces other people to value you. So when I won't do this work for pennies,
Mm-hmm.
or I won't let you pay me less than everybody else, now I'm putting my stake in the ground and I'm showing you that I value myself. So you need to value me too.
Yeah.
How do we get our young people who are coming behind us in a much different attitude about work? First of all, a lot of people aren't working anymore. We've got this quiet quitting going on. We've got people who are moving out of the workforce because they don't feel it's fair. They think we're being overworked in this country, and a lot of that is true. They don't see the value in working, because you work hard, and a lot of us aren't getting pensions. We're not even getting 401ks. We're just spending years working, and at the end of the day, we have nothing but stress and sickness because of it. How do we prepare this generation behind us who choose to walk your path, who choose to walk my path, to be prepared for this world and to be a bigger voice? Don't wait 10 years to be the voice initially. What are some of your tips for this younger generation to prepare them for the workforce that they're facing?
That's another great question, Michelle. And here's how I would like to answer you. Is I believe as parents, we should set the example to our children. We should teach our children early in life that a job doesn't make you rich. A job doesn't, you go to work every day, but are you richer? Are you the better? Perhaps not. But teach our children to be entrepreneurs. Teach our children to be, you've got the skills that God gave you. Why are you going out? And I'm saying it now because I've done it. But I also in my book, I did talk about having entrepreneurial spirit at 14. I just want to go out there and do the things that I love and get money for it and make my customers happy. And so we are to encourage our kids, instead of go finding a job, use the skills God has given you to be your own boss. There's nothing like being your own boss. I'm telling you, there's nothing like being your own boss. To work the times you want to work, that nobody decide when you got to work. So be an example to your children. And I hope that I've been an example to my children to let them know, not only to educate yourself, but you have skills that God has given to you. Don't give it to anybody for a penny.
I love
You
that.
can do it. You can have your own business no matter how small it is. If you can write, go write books, go write poems, go do it. If you can teach, make your own courses, and you can do it online. Be your own entrepreneur. Don't go into the workplace and have people abuse you and use you. Be your own boss. And guess what? When you are your own boss, you can be able to teach others who don't want to be bosses how to be an exceptional leader.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've run my own business now for 10 years. I can tell you, you are absolutely correct. Always wanted to be an entrepreneur my entire life, but I grew up in the projects. And so poverty drove me to seek that big degree and to go after the big job. And I tell you, it wears you out. It is a very, very tough road to take. And I am trying to teach my son the same thing, to be an entrepreneur. We have a question here by someone I'm thinking is a relative of yours. She says,
It's one of my exceptional children.
I figured as much. So, commending the courage it takes for you to tell your story, did you have any reservations about releasing your book and exposing the injustices that you faced in these government agencies?
Yes, I did. I had a lot of reservations. My story was so deep and my story was so, I don't even have words to describe my story. And I felt that people were saying, well, it must be something you did. It must be. And I have other people that would say, well, you don't want to put that story out there because you don't want to damage somebody else's character. I've got that a lot. But I stated earlier, Michelle, that deep conviction within me wouldn't allow me to. I started writing my book and I just put it aside, but I just couldn't. I had to publish the book, And here's the thing I stated earlier. Although I was hesitant about doing it, early I stated that there's three things I wanted to do: to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with my God. And so if I am going to decide, well, I'm not going to hurt somebody else's character because he or she was an actor in my story, how is that love and justice? How is that? And how is that helping to make the environment, the working environment, better for the next generation? How is that? My thing is, although I was fearful, although I had a reservation, I deep inside me was the power to do what the Holy Spirit wanted me to do, and that's to share my story. And I stated earlier, it's to empower, it's to motivate, and to inspire others to tell their stories and to let them know that their voice matters.
Have you heard from any of the people that you refer to in the book? And have you received any type of negative feedback about the stories that you tell?
Not at all. I haven't heard from anyone. I haven't heard negative feedback. And Michelle, I am not one to tell stories that didn't happen. If it happened, it means that I have my evidence to show. So I'll be happy if someone comes to me and say, your story is not true about me. I didn't call anybody's name. I just wrote my story based on what happened to me. And I even I would not want those experiences to happen to an enemy, to anybody else. So I am coming forward and telling my story because I want to make a change. And I hope that through my book, we will have the discussion about racism and discrimination in the workplace to make a change. I didn't
Absolutely.
just write my book to stay on the shelf. I want some change. And I am going to go up the ladder, even to the president, and say, Mr. President, we need some change in the workplace. I've got three exceptional children coming along, and I'm hopeful that they would become entrepreneurs. But if not, and they find themselves in the workplace, I want them to be treated fairly. And this fight is for them. This fight is for my children and my grandchildren because I want them to be treated better than I was.
Excellent. We have one more. We have some more questions. Continue to drop your questions. We're going to be on now for another 2 minutes or so. Do you feel a huge burden was lifted when you published? I can't imagine dealing with that for years.
Yes, I feel a huge is it a huge burden lifted? Yes, I just feel light. I feel light in telling my stories. But I'm going to tell you what makes me feel even better. What makes me feel even better is the reviews that I'm hearing from people, and the reviews bring tears to my eyes because there's so many people out there that's going through discrimination and racism in the workplace, and as I stated earlier, their voices are muted, and they can't speak because they're scared of retaliation. But there's so many young people that's like, I am so happy you write your book. I am so happy. It lets me know that I can fight. So publishing my book has not only lifted my burden, but it has illuminated people, young and old, just to know that they can fight. They can tell their truth. They
So
can tell
wonderful.
their truth based on
A
the
couple of
power
weeks,
within them.
couple of weeks ago, I had a pen posse roundtable, and we talked about nonfiction writing and how we are trying to heal the Black
Yeah.
community. And we talked about things that we had to unlearn. These are things that are what we call cultural barriers of care. These are barriers, things that we learned in our
Yeah.
culture that we had to unlearn in order to move forward. And one of the things that several of the people talked about was this idea in the Black community of take the job you get, be happy with what you've got, put a smile on your face, go to work and just accept whatever you get. And that is something that we had to unlearn, because we get into these environments at work, and it's a toxic environment, and where you've got the culture behind you, your grandparents or people who come from a different generation saying, just sit there, bear it, smile, get your paycheck and go home. You're also looking at yourself and you saying, I am devaluing myself by staying in these environments. So there were several people talking about how these toxic workforces have literally made them physically sick, has made them, doubt themselves. And now you're saying the best solution for this is to stand up for yourself, fight, give voice to what is wrong, go against discrimination and racism, and and move forward. And so it's so excellent that that's the approach that you're taking, and I'm so happy that you're here to share this book with you. And I hope everybody will go and buy Dr. Francis' book. We have some more questions coming in. One more question here, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how you're marketing your book and how you publish your book. So what advice do you have for someone who may be feeling discriminated in the workplace? Great question.
Yeah, that is a great question, because I've been there. You feel like you're discriminated, but as I stated in my book, I don't go on feelings. I really don't go on feelings, but within you there's something happening, but you just don't want to come out and say, well, this is it. And so you have to have the conversation. And I stated earlier, own your voice. If you have to go to that, whoever that person is, and have a talk with him or her and say, hey, this is what I'm experiencing. This is what I'm experiencing. And how can we work together to make it better? Because I don't want to feel that you're discriminating against me. Now, when you have the talk and you don't see any change, then perhaps you need to go to HR and say, hey, I think this is what I'm experiencing, and I want some intervention into the experience.
Absolutely.
And that's what I've done. In most agencies, if they're ethical, they will take action, because I have been there. I have gone to HR on numerous times. I talked about DOD, and they are quick. HR is quick to resolve your issues. The other department, I don't know so much about that. They don't want to be involved. So, and I can't say it enough. Take your notes. I told my children, I said, when you go into the workplace, you make sure you keep a folder of everything, every email, every memo, keep notes. Because if you go to HR and say, I feel, and you have nothing to prove, then that's a problem. Keep emails, keep every record that you can possibly keep while you're on that job, so that when you launch your investigation or your report or whatever you do to HR, you have information to back it up.
That's excellent. So Dr. Francis, talk to us a little bit about your book. Are you self-published, or are you vanity published, or traditionally published?
No, I'm not self-published. Mm-hmm. I actually wanted to self-publish my book. I feel the needed to self-publish it. But about a year ago, after completing and by the way, I told you I started writing the draft manuscript in March of 2020. And it's just interesting that I started at the beginning of COVID, March 2020, and I totally completed the manuscript in March of 2023. It took exactly 3 years. And I wanted to self-publish, and I had a date ready to publish October 22, 2022. And I just so happened to respond to a request for submitting manuscripts. And lo and behold, a month later, I got a notice saying that, hey, we want your manuscript. We want to publish your book. We just want to give it some love. You did a great writing, but we just want to publish your work. And I decided not to self-publish. And so Cola Books accepted my manuscript and they published it for me. Matter of fact, it launched on June 27th, 2023. So I didn't self-publish, and perhaps my next book I'll self-publish. My new book, Seven Characteristics of Exceptional Leaders, will be published next year, and I'm hoping to self-publish that book.
Excellent, excellent. So I know you're with a publishing company. Tell me about your marketing strategy. And we always like to tackle these issues because you're part of the Black Writers Workspace. We're all a bunch of writers who are trying to figure out the best, most cost-effective way to do things. So I always like to wrap up with information about your publishing and your marketing. So tell us about your marketing strategy.
So let me tell you about publishing as an author. I thought that writing the book was the most challenging thing that I would do in my life. I thought it was challenging. But what I have found out after writing and publishing my book, that was perhaps the easiest part. Let me tell you what the hard part is. The hard part is to market your book. The hard part is to get reviews for your book. And even after you've asked people, can you review my book? Can you read and write a review? Sometimes it's difficult. It really, really is difficult. So I want to say writing your book is the first challenge, but marketing the book is what drives success, and it is the most difficult aspect. But if you want to succeed, here's what I want to tell you. Although it's difficult, understand that your book is not for everyone. People are not going to be excited for you because of your book. They are not going to be. But here's what I want to say. There's somebody out there, there's people out there who want to hear your story. Your story is meant to motivate, inspire them to be better than themselves, or to be able to know that they can overcome obstacles. So make sure that you promote your book well to get to those people. And here's what I have had. I have to employ 5 components, and that's a product. When you write your book, make sure your book is an exceptional product. Excellent product. That's what sells. You want to focus on the functionality, the appearance, the quality, and the packaging. So make sure you're packaging an exceptional book. And that also means make sure that you edit and edit and re-edit and edit. It took me 3 years to get my book to where it is. If I had published it in 5 months, it would have been well, what kind of book did she put out there? But I made sure I edit the book. So make sure that you have a quality product. The pricing is important because oftentimes you have to give your customers discounts. So make sure that you're giving discounts for your book after it's been packaged and is good quality. Make sure you're giving discounts. Then distribution of the place. Make sure you have a wide distribution for your book. Not only on Amazon, make sure that it's in Barnes and Nobles. Make sure it's all over the world. I Googled my book, and my book is in India, it's in Asia, it's in Africa, it's everywhere that you can buy a book. So make sure you have places where you can distribute your book. Promotion. I can't say enough about promotion. Make sure you have sponsorships. Make sure you have advertising. Make sure you have messages and using social media. Make sure you have Facebook, Twitter, just the whole 9 yards, because you're going to need that promotion. And finally, people, because your book cannot sell by itself and you need people to purchase your book. So provide good, exceptional customer service, good attitude, among other things. And I am confident if you employ product, price, placing, promotion, and people, you will be successful.
Excellent. I love this. That is so excellent. She hit every point. That is exactly what we want everyone to know on the Black Writers Workspace. First, start with a good product. And I 100% agree. Get an editor, make it look good, make your cover look good.
Yes.
But the marketing of it is ongoing. So for those of you out there who wrote a book and say you think you're going to go and hide, you can't hide. Okay. You got to take off the creative hat and put on the entrepreneur hat. Now you got to go out there and sell. So thank you so much, Dr. Francis, for being with us. I am so excited about your work. I employ everyone to please go buy the book and review it. I did put on the screen how they can get it. You can find it on directtoauthor.com. That is my online bookstore. So that's direct, the number two author.com. You can find the book there. It is also on Amazon and it's everywhere. She said, if you Google her name, you Google the book, you're going to find it everywhere. So we're so happy that you've decided to give voice to this issue of workplace discrimination. I pray that you continue to write and inspire us because we need you to continue to be great so that you can inspire all of us as well as the writers that are coming up behind you. So thank you so much for being with us. I know I've put it on the screen, but if you want to, if you have a website or anything you want to share with everyone, if you want to give some final remarks to our writers, we would love to have that.
Yeah, so I am on Dr. Jean D. Francis.com, and you can check me on my website. You will see what's coming up in the future. I'm having a few book signing. If you check in there, you'll see the date and the time. And I would love to meet and greet. Um, so many of you, I'd really love to at the book signing if you are located in Maryland, or I can plan to be where you are for book signing. I'm not scared to travel. Remember, I stated earlier, I just love traveling. So I'll come to you. But yeah, please read, get my book, read it. And the book is not just for me, guys. It's to change the environment in which we live in. We have to change, we have to focus on racism and discrimination, not only in the workplace, but in other areas of our lives. None of us deserve to be discriminated or had racism um, thrown at us. None of us. We're all God's children, for crying out loud. So let's get in the fight. I can't do it on my own. You can't do it on your own. But with all of our voices and all our hands on deck, I'm certain that if we can't make total change, we can make some change. So find me on my website, drjeandfrancis.com, and let's continue the conversation about making change, not only for us, but for the next generation.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being with us. We are just
You're
so proud
welcome.
of everything that you're doing. I want you to stay on the screen. Well, I don't want you to go anywhere. I'm going to take you off the screen, but I want you to stay so I can give you a formal farewell. And then I want to talk to the people a little bit about some of the things that are coming up for the Black Writers Workspace. I also want to invite you to the Black Writers Workspace, our second annual live book fair that will take place in New Orleans here in May of next year. So we had our first one in January. 75 writers. It was an amazing event. And so we're going to do it again here in New Orleans. So if you love to travel, I know you want to come.
Yeah, I like traveling.
That'll be great. So you just hold on for me and I'll give you a formal farewell. But for now, you still got a couple of people who are putting some information out there telling you thank you. Thank you guys so much for being with us. This will be on Facebook, on YouTube. It will also be on Spotify tomorrow. And we're going to put clips of it on our Instagram page so you can follow us at Black Writers Workspace. That's on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And now we just started a LinkedIn page as well. So
Thank you,
hold
Michelle.
on for
I'm
me.
happy to be here. And listen, normally I'm quiet and I'll say something, in a quiet, calm voice. But listen, I'm so passionate about this. so passionate. So if the passion just exudes from me, know that I am so passionate about this fight.
Oh, we love your passion and we are in the fight with you. So don't worry about that. You are not alone at all. We're just so happy that you're shining a light on this
Thank
topic. So
you.
thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
with us. Don't go anywhere though, okay?
I
I'm going to take you
won't.
out the screen. Just want to tell everyone, thank you so much for being with us. As you know, the Black Writers Workspace, we've been doing quite a few things over the last couple of months. Our Pen Posse Roundtable, the next one is on August the 26th, and we are looking for panelists for it. The topic is going to be book marketing. And so if you're interested, please go to either any of our social media pages and you can find a link to it, or you can find it on the Black Writers Workspace link tree, and you'll be able to figure out how to get the survey. You can also go to my page at author Michelle D. Jackson, and you should be able to see a post about that particular Pen Posse Roundtable. We are also going to announce the winners of the Chapter 1 writing competition on August the 20th. So if you are a participant in that competition, all of our reviewers have read your material and provided feedback. We will be announcing the winners on the 20th, and then you will receive, if you're interested, your feedback from the judges. So that's what's so different about the Chapter 1 writing competition. We're not just looking at your work and saying, win, lose. That's not what we're doing. We're making sure you get feedback on your work. So look for that as well. And as I mentioned before, we are going to host the Black Writers Workspace Black Ink Book Fair again in New Orleans in May of 2024, and we will be putting some information out there. If you're interested also in any of our marketing services, we do ask you to add your books to directtoauthor.com. That is free. You can upload a dynamic profile with your book, your YouTube videos, your social media links. We are trying to build the largest biopic online bookstore. We have about 300 books in it right now, and we do invite everyone to add your books. That's direct, the number two author.com. And you can also go to our shop services page and you can actually work with me to get your own interview done for content purposes, as well as have us to create press releases for you. We can also do social media posts, and you can also be featured in our newsletter that goes out to over 6,000 readers and writers. So, again, thank you so much for being with us. I look forward to continuing to work with you on the Black Writers Workspace. I'm Michelle Jackson. Please follow me at authormichelledjackson.com or author Michelle D. Jackson on Facebook.com if you want to go to my website. Take care.